the National Head Office, the local colleagues of the Free State Policing, and most importantly to Prof. Klopper and the management of this institution. I didn't know there would be a time that I would also have to use things like this to read. But that time has arrived because even if you maximize here, you still need to focus. It is not definitely not a sign of my age, but rather what two students that are my daughters, have contributed to. I need to put out a disclaimer, General Matonzi, that it is the first time that I have met the Vice-Chancellor of this institution, Prof. Klopper, this morning. And at no point did we, had any influence in what the Vice-Chancellor would say with regard to the relationship that this institution and other institutions of tertiary learning in this, beautiful city of Bloemfontein has got with the SAPS. It is an honest reflection of the relationship that we have built over the time that we are here. We have realized, and as the Prof have said, that it's impossible, for an entity on its own, be it the SAPS or the institution, to try and deal with issues on their own. That we need one another to find solutions to our common problems. And it's not the first time that we've been hosted at this institution. And there's a lot of colleagues that can attest to that. So we did not influence them by blowing, the horn on the collaboration that they've got with the SAPS. And that is all thanks to the leadership and management of the SAPS Park Road, obviously under my stewardship, that we have forged this relationship. But for me, to just thoughts and stay focused, we are privileged of the local campus safety summit. Community Safety Forum, strengthening safety and had in the past incident at campus in Kwatwa during the time of the former VC Prof. Francis. It is to book in a show. Other collaboration, it would happen on a disability to ensure the safety of our students and it's a society. Then you are very old when I look at him through these glasses. Crime and violence, establishment of...
So the topics that I'm going to cover, should I just connect my own laptop? I think technology is beating them. Technology is beating them. Can we move to slide number 2 then? These are the topics that I'm going to run through. Some quick background, the policy frameworks, or legal framework if you like, the complexities of crime. I think General Adams touched on this one, how complex crime can be. Just going to run through quickly. Some quick statistical information just to paint a picture, and then a rough picture of data, just a snapshot, because otherwise it will take us the whole day. When I say theory of change, it's about where do we want to see us if this program is implemented successfully, the aims and objectives, the key focus areas, and benefits. Then I will close after that. So I'm going to run very, very quickly because time is very, very limited. Let me start by saying, as a background, slide number 3, that we are all aware that we have experienced some kind of challenges in crime in some of the universities. I think fortunately in this university you don't have the problems that we have in other universities. They inside the universities as well as outside the universities. So they happen everywhere. Because remember, universities are not located in a space. They are located in a particular area. So in other words, if a university is located in an area that is crime infested or infested with drugs, the chances are that there will be drugs in that universities as well. But we're also aware from the statistics that the minister presents from time to time that as a country we're experiencing high levels of violence. I think what makes us different as a country is that whilst other countries have challenges of crime, but we are more violent compared to other countries. We move to the next slide, which is policy framework. I'm not going to touch on this one because of the time, because there are other slides where I want to spend some time. That whatever that we are doing as SAPS, we are mandated by Section 203. Among other things that I want to highlight is the prevention of crime and maintaining public order. I'm not going to go through all others. If we move to the next line, as a country we also have what is called Vision 2030. These are basically aspirations of where we want to see by 2030. Very interesting, we are now in 2025, né? So we are left with about 5 years. You can all calculate and see how far we from realizing some of this. I just took a snapshot. It's a long list of things that we want to achieve by 2030. But one of the things is to increase community participation. By community, it also includes students. In other words, in a democratic society, a police service belongs to the community. And therefore, whatever that you want to do, the community must participate. Otherwise, that is not a democratic policing organization. But we also, as part of these aspirations, is also to be more integrated in the way that we prevent crime. So these are some of the basis of why we are having this program. In other words, we are obligated by the policies, by the Constitution, to work with different stakeholders that we serve. And university is one of those strategic partners that we cannot ignore. If we move to the next slide, which I think General Adams touched on as well as Professor as well, around the complexity of crime. This one we can spend the whole day to try to unpack it. But the message that I want to convey on this particular one is very, very simple. Is that if we look at the criminal justice system, they come towards the end when everything has failed. But if we focus on the first part, which I highlight some few elements, it's a long list of issues that contribute. Poverty, inequality, unemployment. It could be economic structure, meaning that it may not allow other people to operate the way that they want. It could be cultural stereotypes as well, because in certain cultures, things that we say is crime, but they are normal practices. So it could be also those. It could be just practices for other ethnic groups as well. But it could also be the history of where we come from. It could also be the trauma that is for which is really affecting how we behave and respond to issues. Like, for instance, in our country, we find a situation where someone wants to take a cell phone but kill a person, which is abnormal, because you look at the value of the cell phone compared to a human being and you're thinking, these things, they will never match. Why are you killing this person? Just take this thing and go, and that's it. So those are all the dynamics that we don't know, and I guess we need you as academics as well to find us answers in terms of what exactly is happening. So the point I just want to make on this one without going through is that if we focus on those issues, which are the root causes, the last part, which is the criminal justice system, which then focus on law enforcement, NPA, the court, and the correctional services, all those areas become less important because we are addressing those other issues. Move to the next slide. I also want to raise this to you to think about that. Crime is a wicked problem. A wicked problem in the sense that it's more complex than what you see, because there are so many elements that contribute. That is why you'll find that a situation where someone is so poor but he doesn't steal, then someone who has enough is stealing, and you're thinking, what exactly is happening? So you can't say because you are poor you become a criminal. That is not always the case. There is no evidence for that. So crime is very, very complex. Because it's so complex, it also means that our response should also be more strategic. It also needs more spatial attention, but it also needs more understanding of what crime is really all about. So we are saying that to protect students, let me say universities, we need some kind of spatial attention to focus on. Because universities produce leaders. Because leaders, they come from the university. So if you can ensure that universities are fully functional, and the environment is conducive for learning, teaching, and research, then we have more chance of building a better country. So that's why it's important to focus on universities. But at the same time, in our approach, we need to be careful how we find that balance in terms of protecting the universities, but also retaining the freedom of the university. Because the university is a free space where people do as they wish. You say whatever that you want, as long as you are not assaulting another person. It's a space for debate and argument and ideas and everything. So how do we balance that? So what we are saying is that the deployment of law enforcement, or the conventional policing, if you like, it should be a last resort. But to do that, we have to be more proactive in terms of how we protect universities. So I just wanted to give you that background. Hence I was saying that today I'm just focusing on the theoretical basis, if you like, of why this campus program is important. If we move to the next slide, slide number 8, if we run through quickly on some of the incidents, we are aware of some of the brutal incidents that have happened. There was one in KZN University at some stage, and then there was one University of Fort Hare, which we are aware of, which happened very gruesome. But also, if we look broadly speaking, as I've indicated earlier on, that we have high incidence of violent crime. We have seen the minister when he presents stats. We're talking about 10,000 or so sexual offenses per quarter, which is abnormal, about 7,000 cases of murders. These are people who are killed, not people who are sick. These are not road accidents and so on and so on. So that is a challenge that we are having on. So I'm just trying to paint that picture. Why is it important that we, as Professor said, that we need some kind of more innovative measures if we are going to deal with this crime? You can move to the next slide. If you look at the rough picture there, you may not be able to see it because of the light, but it's just to show the picture here. This is available from the site. Anyone can access it. There is nothing secretive about it. Is a trend that was presented a few years ago that shows us the 10-year period in terms of the murder cases in particular over the last 10 years, so you can see the trend for yourself. I don't have to explain it. Now, let's move to the next slide. Why campus safety? Slide number 10. The universities, in the main, are established to achieve three things: teaching, learning, and research. That's where, as Professor also touched on this one, to say that, is the next slide, sorry, I think you are behind. Yeah. The universities have to focus on those three things, among other things. Obviously, they are involved in other community projects, etc., but in the main, those are the critical things. But also, why we are focusing on them? Because we are talking millions of students, or let me say university community, because if I say students, it's like I'm excluding the staff, the management, and everyone, and the visitors. Let's say university community to cover everyone. We are talking millions of people who are in the universities every day. We are also talking 26 universities across the country, about 54 TVET colleges, and 1,445 colleges. So we are talking about a very, very big community that we cannot ignore. So we believe that the creation of safety in the country is the basis of everything. In other words, all these things, the learning, teaching, and research, cannot happen unless you achieve the safety. All the issues of economy becomes irrelevant unless the country is safe. We move to the next line. I'm going to jump this one before they bang the table. Let's jump this one. I will cover it somewhere. In terms of the program aim, at a higher level is to enhance safety within the institutions of higher learning. What we visualize should happen is that there should never be an incident of crime in a university. There shouldn't be. That's ideally what should happen. There should never be any incident of crime in or around the university. It shouldn't happen in a normal society. So what objectives we want to achieve? Ensure that there's a protection of students as well as the entire university community. I'm so happy that the Prof indicated that there is good working relationship in this particular university. I think that is a very positive step. At least we're working on something that is positive. Other universities, the challenges are massive. Other universities, they don't even have the basic physical security. So which becomes really a problem. But also to build the relationship as stakeholders, to make sure that we work together. I'm very happy that there is some good level of relationship in this particular university. But also to undertake joint proactive programs. What I mean by that is that it's not just about responding to issues, but it's about being more proactive. What are the things that we are doing to prevent it before happening? Because deploying the security personnel or police, normally they come when things are wrong. But what are we doing when things are normal? When everyone is happy, what are we doing about that? So that is where proactive comes in. Part of this program is to achieve that, is to intensify on that part. So students should be involved in terms of initiating their own programs, even having dialogues of their own on crime. How do we protect ourselves? How do we work better with the local police? How do we work with the security of the university, etc., 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 etc. But it's also to improve on the police response as well. I think what is important as well, especially for the universities, is that, as I've indicated, that there shouldn't be a situation where the law enforcement, police and security services, we are seen to be fighting. It's very, very embarrassing because whatever happens these days, it becomes a global issue. So it's very, very embarrassing. So part of this program is to say, how do we alleviate problems before they happen? So hence it's important that we, as we launch this tomorrow, we are not saying we've arrived. We are launching to say we are going to intensify our partnership better going forward. We are going to improve where we're lacking. We are going to be structured to say, how do we communicate? How do we provide feedback? If there's a case that involves a student, how do we communicate feedback to the university? How do we identify risk in advance and deal with them? That's what proactive is all about. It's not about the response. Because when we respond, it means things have already failed or something somewhere has failed. Mainly it's communication. But also to prevent GP and other forms of sexual harassment. We know that GPV remains an issue. Professor also touched on this one as well. It is an issue in the whole country. It may not be a big issue in the university. I'm not sure. I don't have stats. But it is an issue in the country. And therefore, it is important that we also address it. Now let's move to the next slide. These are some of the key focus areas that we highlighted as part of this program. First is to focus on the norms and standards. I will unpack them one by one. Secondly is to focus on the security facilities. Basically look at the facilities. As I've indicated that there are universities that don't even have a gate. So where do you even start? There are universities where you find that a person who is not a student but he stays in the university. Believe it or not. For years, not for a week, for years, a person who is not a student is staying there. It might happen that person who stays in the university is the one that we are looking for from a cash heist, but is hiding in a university we don't know. And nobody knows that the person is staying there. Then the student support is also important. Most universities, they have centers or professionals who look after the student, which is a good thing. Policing and law enforcement, how do we respond when there are issues? How do we mobilize if something happens? Governance structure is what is going to be launched tomorrow in terms of the structure, how we communicate, how we prepare ourselves, how we plan our interventions, as well as, and then lastly is when I talk about the student community, we are saying that this one requires some innovation. There should be a way of understanding who is who and who is where. It happened in university in KZN, I think it was University of KZN, I think it's called, Westville, where a student disappeared for days and then he was found dead somewhere. But nobody knew, because as a student, you don't have to report where you are going. It's a Friday or whatever, you go wherever that you want. So nobody knows. If you don't come back, everybody thinks, okay, maybe you went home, maybe you don't have a class today on Monday, so maybe you're still at home. Until 5-7 days, then realize that, no, man, something is not right. So there should be a system of how do we check each other and how do we make sure that there is accounting. Let's move to the next slide now. Let me unpack now these ones. On the uniform standards or norms and standards, we're saying that for universities as part of this program, there should be minimum compliance standards by SIRA. There are universities who utilize, whom we have found that they utilize illegal immigrants as security officers. So now we have a problem with that, because if something happens, these people don't even have their fingerprints, so how are we going to find them? Or do something and it disappears. So we are saying there should be a minimum standard. Remember that this guideline is presented from a national perspective, meaning that you may find that you're already complying with that, which is well and good. But this is just to paint you a picture at a national level. But also there should be a vetting or screening of the security officers, because you are working with the students. Because if we don't do that, then we are exposing students to high risk. Most universities are doing this already, but also there is now a sex offenders register as well, which also needs to be checked now to make sure that a person can work with students, or anyone for that matter. Also, there should be a customized training. You could have a training as a security officer at the university, but the fact that we are working with students, there should be extra training that prepares you to work with students. Like you find a security officer that works in the bank, over and above basic training, but he is trained how to work in a banking sector. The one who's working in the mine, over and above basic training, that person is trained how to work in a mining environment. So he understands how to identify gold, how to identify different things, and so on and so on. So this is the same thing, that over and above your basic grade that we have acquired, but you also know how to work with students. Let me jump this one and move to the next one. The second one is on the facilities, the physical security. Prof touched on this one as well. I think the security looks fairly good in this university. The access control, the biotech, these are basic things. And unfortunately, these are basic things for security that you have to implement in your university. But having said that, there is one university in Western Cape, I'm sure, I don't know whether someone from Stellenbosch, I think they don't have any fence, but they don't have problems either. I think it's Stellenbosch, if I remember well. So we are saying strengthen your perimeter security, but also involve the community. The community needs to know that the university belongs to them. There is a university, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to embarrass them, but you find that the university, as the students or as students are in the class, there are kettles that are crossing as well in the same university, between the classes, to the residents, and so on and so on and so on. So a community needs to be empowered to say, this is your university, this is your role you can play to protect it. Don't steal doors, don't do that, and so on and so on and so on. Let's move to the next slide. In terms of the student support, I touched on this one. This is a key focus area 3, that there needs to be support. When it comes to the support, I always say it's well and good to have professionals who are working in these student support centers. It's called in different names in different universities, but the principle is the same. But what we are saying is that because students are future leaders, they should also be part of those support centers. Because there are students who are studying social sciences, there are students who are studying towards, clinical psychology, and so on and so on. So these students are going to be professional in that support field anyway. So why don't we utilize them to, obviously to work with the permanent staff, but to start working with the students as well. So that's part of the support. Secondly is that as SAPS, we also have what we call victim-friendly rooms. So also other thing you need to think about, how do you link your student support center with a local victim-friendly room at the police station. Hence, I'm saying that we are not launching and saying we have arrived. We are saying we are kickstarting a process of how we strengthen this relationship going forward. So that is these are all the things that we need to explore within your own situation of your university. Training of security officials, again, this talks to the relationship as well. That the security officials in the university, if something happens, before the police arrive or before the crime scene officials come in, what are the things that they need to do to make sure that the scene is not tampered with? Because the scene is so important in crime investigation that one mistake you can destroy the whole case by making just one small mistake and you destroy the whole evidence. So all those things are things that you need to engage on as a structure and find solutions on your own, as well as psychosocial support. I've touched on that, as well as students leading any campaigns and initiatives in terms of crime and awareness, etc., etc. Focus area number 4, policing and law enforcement. Also, as part of this program, we have a dedicated liaison officers. We have liaison officers from SAPS side, which becomes a nodal point for the universities. And this is the person that will be part of the structure that we are launching tomorrow to understand what is happening, but also to share issues from a community perspective as well. But we also have campus safety ambassadors. It's also one of an idea you can explore, but also those ambassadors should be the students. They should be the students who are campaigning and leading these issues, not the staff. The staff can be part of the process, but students should play an active role. And one thing that I want to stress on this one as well is the last part. That sorry, let's move to the next slide. I think you are behind me. Yes, the last part is the campus data. Let me put it that way. That we also need to keep records. What tends to happen is that universities, they try by all means to protect their reputation. As a result, they try to keep the stats as minimal as possible, which is understandable. But they try to keep those stats. Why I'm bringing that up is that you can see that lady that I put her there, Jean Clary Act. This comes from an incident some few years back. If we can go to the next slide. This comes from an act where she was brutally murdered in the university. As a result, in USA, they came up with this act, which was then named after her name, to pay respect to her. The law was basically saying that all universities must disclose their crime stats. In other words, annually when you produce your annual report as a university, you must indicate how many crime incidents and different categories that happen in a university. Why that is important? Because it helps us as parents to decide whether I want to send my daughter in that university or to that one. Like for instance, this one is, I appreciate, sorry, the numbers are too small. But based on this ranking, you can see that university so and so, they had so many sexual offenses, or University X have so many assaults, etc., etc., etc. It's not the law in our country at this stage, but maybe in future it might happen. So let's keep those records. They are very, very important. And those records or those stats will be part of the agenda for your security structure to discuss, which I'm sure you are already doing, and most universities already have those structures. We move to number 5, the next slide. The structures is the one that is launched tomorrow, campus safety structure to be established. These structures then take over the responsibility of overseeing broader security. Security is not policing. Remember, they have to do the entire risk assessment, understand what are the risks of these universities and how we respond to it, and advise the management as well. Because that is important, that in some universities we find that the issues of security are just confined to the security personnel to deal with it, but the management are not really interested on discussing the security issues. That can't be correct. It is wrong. But also to look at the proactive programs which I've touched on. and to make sure that they understand the challenges and come up with the solutions. And this structure will then comprise of different role players. So it differs from university to university. Obviously, the campus security will be part of that. The local police will be part of that. The local CPF will be part of that, etc., etc., etc. But you can look at your own dynamics and decide who is more relevant. We can't prescribe who must be part of that. The last focus area, which I touched on, the next slide, is key focus area 6, student community. This is basically to focus on how we can regulate the student community. The alcohol is a big problem in some of the universities, a big problem. But others, they have got illegal, I don't know whether I should call them illegal taverns or whatever, inside the universities. And that's where the problem starts. I'm told I've left 3 minutes. So that is that, but also to create a system of how can we locate where the students are? How do we identify a missing student on time? Let's move to the next slide and then I'll conclude. Why is it important to have some kind of standards? Firstly, we have to make sure that we are working with security personnel that comply with CIRA. CIRA is a regulator of the private security. If you are not registered with them, as a university, don't even look at that person because you are committing crime straight away. So that is important. But also it will also assist the campus protection services as well to use the sort of a standardized procedure. So ideally what we want to see in the future is that we've got some minimum standards that we can all say as a country we are complying with. Then obviously there will be university-based standards that you can't interfere with. But there should be some basic minimum standard that we comply with. But also we want to have a situation where we can have a sort of an evidence-based, if you like, university or student safety model that we apply as a country. So we don't want a situation where different universities do different things that don't work. You should have some kind of a model that is relevant to our country. But also to enhance the participation of students, to make sure that students are part of the process, because in the main, they are the victims of crime or other sexual offenses. Eventually to have crime-free institutions. The last slide as I conclude, I think what is important is to say that we need more concerted effort by all relevant stakeholders. So as a local CPF, for instance, you must know how safe your universities are. What are the challenges that they are facing? And what role are you playing as a CPF, because you are a member of the community? And same thing with the local police station, must be interested on what is happening in the universities and how are we responding to this. And also to advise the university as well, when necessary. But also, as I've indicated, some of the universities are also the victims of an environment, that if you are located in a gang area, you're also going to have gangs in your university. If you are located in an area where there is drugs, you're also going to have problems of drugs as well. So be conscious of that. In other words, you need to understand your surroundings as well, not just university, but understand what are the issues around your environment and how do you respond to them. But we also need to prioritize prevention. As I've indicated, response is well and good, but response is always too late because it only comes in when things are worse. Let's focus more on prevention, which is more proactive strategies. But we also need to strengthen our collaboration in our responses. In other words, we need to have our own system as a university to say, if things happen now, how do we respond in a few minutes and deal with that situation? I think that is important. And I do believe that if we engage more, probably most of the issues will be solved in the boardroom without even any necessary responses. And then obviously, as I've indicated, uniform standards are very, very important to make sure that we identify and deal with the elements on time. So on that note, program directors, before you bang the table, thank you very much for listening to me and thanks for the time.
Thank you so much for presenting to us on specific challenges of GBV and security.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not going to say specifically to the generals, all protocols observed. The most important people here is my students. And this is something everywhere I go, I talk about my students. Because it's my students that get robbed. It's my students that get attacked. It's my students that is the victims of gender-based violence. And this morning I woke up and I realized we all have our own view, our preconceived ideas of what the crime problem in the country is. What the crime problem is that affects our students. And General, you had a lot of issues there. I can say the University of the Free State, we're addressing all those issues. All those issues were addressed. I think we're one of the first universities in the country to have our own victim support center on campus. We're expanding that now to the other universities. The whole view of specific challenges of GBV and security is influenced by your own background. I viewed the security challenges that we say from an investigation perspective. I'm an investigator, I'm an intelligence operator. I am more focused on the preventing before the incident occurred. And here I am this morning focusing on the different options we have. What is the options that the university have in addressing gender-based violence? What is the options we have to enhance our security? You can report it to the police, you can report it to both the university and the police, or you can choose not to report it. But then the legislation changed. If a female student is the victim of a crime, of a sexual offense, the university is compelled to report that to the police. Does the police know that? Because when we get to the different police stations and we want to report the incident, then they tell you, no, but what must we do with this? If the student don't want to complain, what must we do with the investigation? How do we address that? Luckily, with General Adams here, we've got the process now working, and the process works excellently. I'm also one of the lucky people at the University of a higher education institution. I've got dedicated investigators, former police investigators that know what they're doing, former FCS investigators that know how to address sexual-based offenses, gender-based violence. But that is not what security challenges entails. Despite the fact that we've got 1,600 cameras on this campus, we still have crime. You cannot have cameras everywhere. You cannot have a camera in a residence, the place where most of our incidents of theft take place, in residences on campus. Our on-campus crime increased to some extent despite the security measures we have in place. We have excellent successes, and our criminals come from outside. Students leave their windows open. A thing is taken there. Students leave their laptops unattended in study venues. Students leave their cell phones. Ooh. I can't understand how can somebody, a 26,000 rand item, leave it on a desk. You wouldn't walk in the street with 26,000 rand in your hand, but here you are walking in the street with earphones on your head, thinking nobody will rob you. Now, the on-campus crime to the University of the Free State is not a big problem. We manage our crime. We have excellent successes, and I can boast in that regard. I've got a 70% detection rate for on-campus incident of crime. Our problem starts where the fence stops. The majority of students at any higher education facility resides off campus. At this university, almost 90% of our students reside off campus. Last year, in the 6 years I've been here, the first time I had 2 students that were killed off campus. Despite our off-campus crime declining, the reported incidents to us declined by 6.5%. But the violent nature of the crimes increased drastically. And how do we address that? Is that related to gang violence? We have gang members in the areas around us. Is that our problem? Is the societal problems impacting on a university and creating more problems for us? Now, for a security company or a security section of any university, we focus on the detection, the deterrence, and delay of an incident. That's the 3 Ds of security: detect, deter, delay. How do we detect? How do we deter? Deter, we've got an excellent fence, we've got 1,600 cameras, we've got security officers at the gates, we've got security officers patrolling on campus. But how do we still have incidents taking place? Most of your incidents take place in private areas, the areas where you don't have regular access to. And that is the problem of security. You can't be everywhere. The focus must thus be on discouraging an incident from taking place, and that this can only be done through awareness campaigns. Continued awareness campaigns, and people knowing what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. People knowing that I shouldn't leave my cell phone lying around. People knowing that the best form of self-defense is not placing you in the situation. Now, a few weeks back, there was a security company in Bloemfontein posting on Facebook saying, tips for walking alone at night. There's only one tip: don't do it. Don't walk alone at night. But now the question is, our students residing off campus come to campus to get free Wi-Fi, to study in the library, to study in the study venues. Then at 3 o'clock, they decide, no, now I'm going back to my off-campus residence. Alone, in the dark, we've got load shedding, you get robbed. How do we address that? You cannot do that in isolation. There is only one way. The mandate of any in-house security service stops at the gate. The university cannot go outside of that. Now, a few years back, we've had the idea to enhance our off-campus security. So we employed private security companies to provide an armed response and patrol service off campus. And I think to some extent that is the reason why our crime last year declined with 6.5% off campus. But still the problem persists. What do we do? How do we enhance that cooperation? The municipality, they promise me they have additional vehicles around the campus. Traffic law enforcement have additional vehicles around campus. But still, we have the problem off campus, not on campus. So we mustn't just focus on our students and the university community on the campus. We must also focus on the university community off campus. Awareness, focus on the potential victims and the potential perpetrators of crime. In gender-based violence, we usually have the tendency to focus on the female victims of, or let me say, the perceived victims being females. Men are also victims of gender-based violence. We've had several incidents over the past 3 weeks where men were the victims of gender-based violence and sexual offenses. How do we get basic education involved in ensuring that students, that children know what is expected from them? And I think that is where the whole process of crime prevention starts. Education, education, education. And I must also say, communication, communication, communication. The more you communicate, the more people listen. Now, I must say, this morning also, You can tell somebody, and you can tell somebody, and you can tell somebody, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And they still do it. How do we get that mind shift change? How do we get our students to change their minds on taking responsibility for their own safety? And on the t-shirts that we're giving out to the students this morning, it is, safety starts with me. It is what you do about your safety. That is what is important. It is what you see and what you report that helps us in our fight against crime. It doesn't help a student come to protection services and say, I want to report an incident that has happened, theft of an incident. But then when we arrest the suspect, you come and say, no, we must withdraw this case. Okay, we withdraw the case. 2 weeks later, we arrest that same person who stole another student's items. Then, and I think the police have the same problem that we have, that suspect is released on a warning, a bail, he must go to court on a later date, and then 4 weeks after that, he stabs somebody when he tries to steal another laptop. So don't withdraw your cases. That is how we address crime. We had a staff member here that was up in arms yesterday morning because her postbox was stolen. And I told her, go to the police station, report it. The same day, Park Road made an arrest. She hasn't reported the postbox as stolen at that stage. Then I put pressure on her to go to the police station to report the incident. And I must say in that regard again, very good feedback. The manner in which she was addressed, handled, she wasn't treated like a culprit. She was treated like the victim of a crime. And a very good success. Now, I'm going to close with the 3 Ds, 3 R's of security. Reduce the probability of the crime being committed. That's not always possible. We know we've got a very, 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 very high levels of crime in the country, and it's not always possible. But through proactive policing, proactive security measures, you can address that. And I'm a firm believer in visibility. You can't cover the whole area, and for the Bloemfontein campus, let me talk about the Bloemfontein campus. The campus is surrounded by the Brandwag neighborhood, the Universitas neighborhood, Park West, Universitas Ridge, where most of our students also reside. But students also reside in the areas, Universitas. Where do we stop? I've got students studying in how many vehicles must I deploy to get a decline of a reduction.
Bathrooms are here on my left-hand side, and all the refreshments will be served outside. Enjoy. We can please meet about 25 past if possible. Thanks so much.
All right, we had 5 minutes grace period, which is about to end in less than a minute. So at past, we're going to commence. It's past now. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We now will be moving over to the 7th item. It denotes there on it that it's civilian oversight on GBVF.
I just want to, if I don't have my page, I might not be able to acknowledge them accordingly. May we respect the presence and also in absentia of the Vice Chancellor who addressed us this morning. Show respect to General Matonzi from Division Visible Policing. We equally send that respect to the District Commissioner, General Adams, in our midst. I saw General Mudise in the morning. I don't see her now. We also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Kuobos Angliako. I normally call him like that, Angliako. And then we want to respect and also acknowledge the presence of various university representatives. I led Northwest who connected online. Should it happen, allow me to give a bit of a background. I spoke to the program directors, both of them, that I'm bribing them for 5 minutes. I don't want to hide it because there is a background needed. The Deputy Minister of Police will be here tomorrow, and I'll speak to it on the last slide of the presentation. The work that brought us here was conceptualized as early as 2017, for your information. And at that time, there were a leadership of young people who were dedicating their time to work on this work. They worked on two major documents. They worked on the Integrated Youth Crime Prevention Strategy, which is operational as we speak. They also worked on the the learning environment safety framework, which the Deputy Minister will be officially declaring it operational. And General Matonzi this morning spoke to it to say it will serve as a guiding tool to all institutions on how to source information. So I will make a mistake, General. Allow me, because I'm a liberal being now, no longer following any protocols, and I won't be taken to any disciplinary hearing after what I uttered, no matter what. Allow me to acknowledge the university that was there when the issues were conceptualized, which is the University of Free State. Definitely it was there. Coupled with the University of TUT. I'm happy, and I'm sorry to do this. Director Mpai, I saw you somewhere. I don't know where is he. Please, that's the man who assisted this work in providing the accommodation for us to conceptualize at the University of TUT in the Mpumalanga branch. He also facilitated some of the work streams working towards this very thing. And allow me, General, to speak to this gentleman. I want him to stand up, and he might refuse, and we won't discipline him after he refused. Mr. Vusito, may you please stand up wherever you may be. Please remain standing. This man was the chairperson of the conceptualization of the content of the Integrated Youth Crime Prevention Strategy, together with the content of the Learning Environment Safety Framework, which the Deputy Minister will be rolling out tomorrow. So I just wanted to say, let the meeting know these two people. Not only these two, but other universities participated in 2018-2019 during the conceptualization of this thing. We must also acknowledge that the SAUS leadership came and put content to this, what is happening today. The SATVETSA leadership came to put content, and also the higher health leadership came to put content. The basic education came to put content. All stakeholders, we want to say, today we are seeing the work of your hands or your minds being brought together. We are realizing it at Free State. And Free State, politically speaking, has got a history of things to start. I don't want to get into it, but you've got the Supreme Court here. And then I want to tell you that one of my organization, the GOGO organization, the old has done a great work starting from Free State. Let me not get into that environment. Now I'm coming to what the program directors want. Lindy, your laptop has laptoped me. Now I must work on, and I'm going to save that time. Believe you me. I'm going to save it. Lynn. I'm taking it from here to 8. And she said to me, keep on touching it. Keep on. I'm using hands. I don't touch. I speak. Right. I will touch. May I request the slide to be flouted so that I can introduce who are we? The first slide. Now, the first one. We are here today from the Civilian Secretariat for Police Service. The Civilian Secretariat for Police Service, it's a body that plays an oversight role upon the work of the police nationally, provincially, and locally. This body is equated to another body, and there are only two in the country. You will get the Civilian Secretariat in the army, you will get the Civilian Secretariat in the police. None other government department has got these two bodies. The role of the Civilian Secretariat Police is mandated, or as per the legislation, Civilian Secretariat Act number 2 of 2011. Whatever that has been happening here, we started doing the oversight to say SAPS is now moving forward with the dream of realizing a free South Africa. And this journey has not yet ended. There are slides backward, they used to say, on the journey to a safer. And we have not yet arrived. We are still on a journey. We will arrive one day maybe. General Matonzi said we are left with only 5 years to realize the 2030 vision. Are we on the journey to a safer South Africa? Are we arriving? SAUS will tell us, SATVETSA will tell us, because they are in the environment of higher learning. When they conceptualized the whole thing, they indicated that in the learning environment, this caters from SLS preschool, but the focus today is at higher level. Now, slide number 2 speaks to the challenges that the students are facing in the TVET colleges and in the institutions of higher learning universities. Those challenges are increasing. We might not have such much big here in Free State, but they are increasing, those challenges. General Matonzi this morning said, we are expecting the university to be the most safest place, yet we find ourselves in a situation where it is becoming the most cruel space. And it is up to us all. Kuba said, safety starts with me. So it is up to us all to make sure that our universities are safe. More so that the issues of gender-based violence, I won't dwell much on them, because all the 4 speakers that spoke, they are safe. I will speak to it on police service. This is no longer South African police force. It's no longer South African police force. They must render a service to you. They must render a service to you. If it calls that Uncle Guabos and the Vice Chancellor opened the victim support room here, and the victim is in the university, the police and the victim is in the university, the police must come and open up it. And we are happy for that. Keep it up, Free State University. We are aware that there might be inadequate human resource, both in the university, in the SAPS, but the CPF, together with a broader community, have got a responsibility to assist and supplement wherever possible in the protection of the students. We mustn't shy away that there are students who lost their lives in the universities. Some, they were even chopped and put in the briefcases. How cruel can it be to that level? At an institution of high learning where we are expecting a student to graduate, but he is graduating to the graveyard by a human being that we are seeing naked with our naked eyes. That cannot be. The Civilian Secretariat for Police says we will watch over the police when they perform their duties in making sure that learners, students are safe in the learning environment. You students, you have got a duty to report all the bullies. I just cited some of the students who died brutally, who paid the ultimate price, whereas they were supposed to be graduating, but they paid the ultimate price by paying with their own lives, and they've done nothing wrong. That body belongs to you as a female, not to somebody else. And your no must be a no. Elevate it so that we can know that it is your no. We will intervene to make sure that your no becomes a no. In the next slide, I've already spoken to many slides. I'm on slide number 5. If you may move to that one. The Civilian Secretariat for Police has got a section, or rather a directorate called Private-Public Partnership. This directorate is running the anti-crime campaign precisely in the institutions of high learning relating to the GBV and sexual offenses. With these campaigns, they open up for the students to speak out. And when the students are speaking out, we are getting answers on how to police them better. And we will advise the SAPS on how to police the students, because they shall have spoken out with their own mouth. In 2018, a presentation was made to Kemprosa. It was in Gqeberha, PE, where the National Commissioner was invited. The National Commissioner passed the buck to the Deputy National Commissioner, and it was passed to the Major General who was committed, General Matonzi at that time, was committed. It was passed through until it landed to a colonel. And a colonel presented to Kemprosa. And Kemprosa came to the party. All the universities that we are getting into right now, we are getting it via the protection services who are opening doors, because they engage with us, they listen to us, and they've got keen interest in the safety too. Big up to protection services of all institutions. I'm on slide number 6. Kuabos indicated that the students can report here at the Free State. They can report directly to the protection services. They can report to the management. They can report to the police station. They've got a choice. They gave me a threat. I will employ the services of General Adams. He has got a firearm. Thank you, Program Director. I'll listen to you. Right. Then we want to encourage you to report. Don't keep quiet. Report so that we can act on what you are reporting. Precisely on matters of GBV, and also because of the threat. Let's move to slide 8 so that I can finalize everything. No, this is a holy threat. You know, a holy threat doesn't threaten. Thank you so much, Doctor. Slide number 8. It still talks to the issues of the GBV, but I want to say the Deputy Minister of Police had a keen interest after the matter was presented to him about the finalization of the Learning Environment Safety Framework. And the Learning Environment Safety Framework, it's a part of content which comes from the Integrated Youth Crime Prevention Strategy. These two documents are talking to one another. And it is youth-led, and the young people should stand up and run with that document. It belongs to them. Young people, you are the future, and no one should stop you unless you stop yourself. Now, the structure that General Matonzi spoke to in the morning should have in itself the following. Your university management, it should have the student formation of this institution. It should have also the local police station representatives. It should have the CPF representatives. It should have other interested NGOs which are having interest in the safety of the student. And we want to say the representation of all those people should make sure that the structure is up and running. 2 minutes remaining. In these 2 minutes, we want to say sector managers. Students are residing within certain sectors. Sector managers should know how many students does he have in his own sector. And there must be a WhatsApp group that the sector manager is having, whereby students can contact the sector manager in case they are failing to reach out to the police station. And the sector manager should intervene in ensuring that wherever they may be in their private residential, they are protected. So when we leave here, the structure that will be launched tomorrow should ensure that the sector managers are at work and they know where are the students residing in those private institutions. The one who is in Pretoria will be sorted out by Pretoria Gubas. Don't worry. You will only sort out the Free State. The one in Pretoria, they will sort themselves out in Pretoria. And I can promise the university that Civilian Secretariat for Police will come back with that program of anti-crime campaign, and they will come back with a sponsor. That sponsor will be issuing out the alarm systems. Those alarm systems will be precisely for the students who are residing in the off-campus place or in the private residence, so that when they are under attack, they can press the panic button, and that panic button will sensitize the neighbor and the person that he or she is under threat. Lastly, we have got international students who does not know South Africa. Where is their pride? It is up to this structure to make sure that when they register at the beginning of the year, we identify such international students and we make sure that they are protected. Because if they go back home under the theme of saying they were attacked in South Africa, the image of the country is dented. So we are advocating once more to all students to be proud ambassadors of raising the flag of South Africa high in the institutions of higher learning. And lastly, thank you so much, Free State University, for hosting this enormous kind of an event and touching base with all other institutions of higher learning. We want to appreciate that. Program Director, thank you. And thank you for speaking.
Thank you so much, Director Dolo. It is my pleasure now to ask Ms. Geraldine Lingao from the Office for Gender Equality and Anti-Discrimination, UGFS, to please come and talk to us about the risk factors of GBV.
Program Director, esteemed guests, thank you so very much for the opportunity. I had thought that by now we would have engaged in the politics of the stomach, but we were discriminated against outside. So I hope that our minds and our hearts will carry us until lunchtime. Colleagues, Lina Lameki Geraldine Lingau I am a girl from the Northwest, and I was happy to know that there are Northwest universities present here. Thank you. Let me once again take the opportunity not only to thank you, but to also thank the collaborating officers for inviting us to come and witness this great work that has been done and that is going to continue to be done in order to ensure that our campus remains safe and non-tolerant to gender-based violence and or harm. I noticed as well that the threat still persists, right? The threat of the table being banged. So I will stay away from being long. All right. Colleagues, mine is a very fair and easy ask. I was asked to come and share about the risk factors that contribute to gender-based violence. Now, we need to appreciate first and foremost that there are various factors that may affect how and impact also on how gender-based violence incidents are reported. The University of the Free State has in the year 2018 adapted the sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and sexual violence policy. In this policy, the university seeks to act as Monitor's office, the gender office, in the form of what Ntate Kuba spoke about, sexual offenses response team. And the pride behind this entire system or team is that the survivor of gender-based violence is placed at the center. So it is what the survivor wants that is listened to, and it is what the survivor ultimately gets. So I think for that, we really need to give our university a very big and warm round of applause for establishing such a policy. Now, Program Director, if you may, I have crafted a list of select few risks. And I have to say, just to disclaim, that it is a select few risks that I've highlighted. So by no means is this list exhaustive, because there are many more which may either exist on our campus or off campus. All right. The first risk factor being that of an environment or a space. A while ago, with much appreciation, our campus protection services looked at the area of lighting. Now, we may take it for granted, the fact that we come to university, we are in our cars, we come and conduct our business, we go back home. We never get to actually experience walking on campus and in dark valleys or alleys of our campus. However, this is not the reality of our students. Our students with our library services being opened or operational for 24 hours, unfortunately find themselves walking and sometimes in the unfortunate dark valleys of campus. So with that said, an initiative was made to ensure that there is effective lighting. I want to say that this becomes a risk factor for obvious reasons, because obviously you walk in the dark, a perpetrator is hiding in the dark, they pray for you in this dark alley, and you are violated. But what is of significant importance in this particular risk factor that I want to highlight is that this shows the commitment of our university to creating socially just and inclusive spaces. The second risk factor, and I think a lot of the colleagues that spoke before me spoke about, is the risk factor of gender identity. Believe it or not, colleagues, the way people choose to identify becomes a risk factor. The issue here, such as corrective rape, a person's sexual identity or sexual orientation has often at times been used against them. Just the term corrective rape in and of itself is not correct. How do you correctly violate somebody so that they can conform to your standards? Unfortunately, we live in a society where gays, lesbians, trans individuals, non-binary individuals are often violated just because they don't fit to societal norms. Another issue that I want to highlight here is that, and I think another colleague again spoke, we should never ever shy away from the disproportionate rate at which females, and I will emphasize females, are continuously being violated just on the basis of their gender. Yes, we understand, we appreciate that males, and even of late, are coming out to speak about their violations. But at the core, when we address gender-based violence, it is the females that are disproportionately harmed as opposed to men. The next factor I want to look at is also the issue of association. Now, many first-year students, if they are here, will have heard during our orientation services how we often emphasize the issue of crowds, the issue of being around a safe crowd. Again, you and I may take it for granted because with age comes maturity, I beg your pardon. We understand who we live with, when we live with, and why we must live with them. But think of yourself as a first year. You are in Bloemfontein for the first time. You hear of Small Street. You want to go see Small Street. You want to go to the Freshers' Ball. And you go with the wrong crowd. Often at times, this is exactly how you become a risk to gender-based violence. Because they leave you there, they drag you or they spike your drink. Who do you say you went with? Because after all, you're just a first year. So if there are first years in our midst, please, please do not undermine the issue of always walking around with a safe crowd, safe and known crowd. A next factor I want to look at, again, it's been touched, but the issue of age. Colleagues, when we are in university, between the ages of 18 and 25, we have now, according to legislation, termed to be dealing with vulnerable communities. So inevitably, our students are a vulnerable community. And by virtue of being between 18 and 25, we are at risk of being violated. All right. The Act obviously does extrapolate other ages such as minors and 60-year-olds, but I think for purposes of understanding our context, we will speak to the 18-year-olds to the 25-year-olds. All right. Then also, I'd like to touch on the issue of inter- and intra-personal factors. Many a times, people are not aware of their boundaries. Many a times, people do not have a sense of self-awareness. And with this said, I want to say, can we never grow weary of encouraging ourselves, our broader community, to take care of our mental well-being? Cases in point, many a time students come, they've been violated, and the first people that you refer them to would be the psychologists. And guess what they say? No, I don't want to go to the psychologist. I'm studying. I've got an assignment. No, I don't want to go and reopen my wound and speak to Monita. No, I don't want to go to a psychologist because how are they going to help me? But believe it or not, it becomes very important because then there, not only do they, like Ntate Kobas was saying, speak to the trauma that you have experienced, but they are able to teach us about our own self and our lack of sometimes boundaries, and once again, our lack of self-awareness. So colleagues, with that said, I just want to say, please, can we never grow weary of understanding the importance of our mental well-being? Whether it's pre, whether it's post, but please, mental well-being is extremely important, especially in the area of gender-based violence. Then there's the issue of substance abuse. There is a rise. There is an increase in the use of alcohol. And not only the use, but the abuse of alcohol as well. I don't know what this is attributed to. Maybe it's because it's easily accessible. Maybe it's because Small Street is not far away. Here by Brandbach, I saw there's a liquor outlet. So it's literally everywhere. The disadvantage, however, of this being so easily accessible is that we then see it and its manifestation in our cases. There is often a direct link between the use of alcohol and gender-based harm and or gender-based violence incidents. So I understand we are in the age of savannah and all these other nice stuff, mimosas, but please, we need to tread with caution because this is becoming alarming. Lastly, I want to look at the issue that I feel often at times is underspoken or not spoken on, where we are first responders to gender-based violence. But in being a first responder, you perhaps did not appreciate what it means for you to understand not to secondarily victimize the person in front of you, not to re-traumatize the person in front of you. However, because of natural empathy and because we care, we did the best that we can. Again, with the issue of lack of self, or rather lack of knowledge, understanding what is gender-based violence. I know that at the core, many a times, and it has been spoken about, people will always say, no, gender-based violence is not just for women, also the men. Great and fair, we've established that. But that is not what we're talking about. We need to understand what are the factors that cause gender-based violence. What are the norms in society that perpetuate gender-based violence? I also just want to appreciate one of the daughters of our soil, Professor Dean from the law faculty. A while ago, Professor Dean has set a precedent in that she challenged a Supreme Court of Appeals judgment which was handed down in 2012. This was in the Defi versus Defi matter. And I just want to quote the insight that she gave, which I believe becomes very important for us if we want to understand and have knowledge on the issue of gender-based violence. She says, in her judgment, she argues that Domestic Violence Act was intended to offer protection in a wide range of domestic relationships, and that persons failing, or rather persons who ruled over the Defi versus Defi matter did not consider that society evolves and its dynamics also evolve to suit that of modern familial ties. She expanded that the definition of domestic relationship is to include relationships that are based on familial obligations, even where there is no cohabitation or direct consanguinity. Lastly, I'd like to quote what she said in this precedent case. Society is constantly changing, and the law must adapt accordingly to ensure its relevance, and that the widest possible protections are afforded to those in a wide range of domestic relationships. Members of the SAPS, collaborative officers from the UFS, I really want to thank you for holding hands with us in curbing the scourge of GBV. I thank you.
Wow, Ms. Langa, this was truly informative, well structured. I cannot thank you enough. We move over now to item number 9. It gives me pleasure now to welcome Dr. Menita. I've been sitting there with her for the whole day now since the inception of the program. I've been honored. I won't lie to you. Doctor, welcome.
I have a slide presentation, please. Thank you. Yes, I'm very aware of my time, I promise. Colleagues, thank you so much for the time this afternoon. I'm going to be reflecting a bit on the needs of a GBV survivor. When we look at the next slide, I just want to provide you with some context of where I fit in within the university. I'm a counseling psychologist and I manage the Center for Health and Wellness, and we've got different legs within the center. We've got student counseling and development, as well as our Koffsie Health services with our professional nurses, and then also HIV services being offered. Now, when we look at what student counseling and development do, we have psychologists, social workers, registered counselors, intern psychs, and intern social workers who can assist students for free that are registered at the University of the Free State. We've got 3 campuses, and we've got offices on each of these campuses. Now, when we look at GBV, and we look at the next slide, for interest's sake, I Googled last night, and I just looked at the last 5 days. And I think the horrific fact is I could actually choose which articles I could look at. It was not something I had to really search for. And these are just 3 of the most prominent. I think when we hear the name of Uyi Nene, say my name, nee, that's something we will never forget. When we think of Alison Botha and the whole process we had the last few months regarding her perpetrators getting parole and then being put back in jail by the minister. And then lastly, looking at BOSA at the moment asking for public access to the National Sex Offenders Register amid the rising GBV stats. Now, colleagues, when we look at GBV in context on the next slide, it's important to note that this is something that's unfortunately happening in all our communities. It's happening worldwide, and unfortunately it's quite rife in our country. And I think maybe the saddest thing for me about this whole phenomenon is that it's based on someone's gender. And that's where the word comes from, gender-based violence. It's rooted in unequal power dynamics, harmful cultural norms, and systemic discrimination. So when we think of a GBV survivor, we need to keep in mind that we're working with someone that's got a fear of being stigmatized, that's being fearful of being shamed. He or she's probably been isolated due to what's been happening. And unfortunately, in some of our communities, we do think this is normal. Nee? If a woman is sometimes, speaking a bit too loudly and she's out of her place, she needs to be put back in her place. And that's all right in some of our communities. And that's not. Also, when we look at the effect of gender-based violence on an individual's rights, you're taking away their dignity. You're taking away their sense of self. When we look at possible consequences of GBV incidents, it can range from unwanted pregnancies, HIV, sexual transmitted diseases or infections, physical trauma, and sometimes, unfortunately, even death. So when we look at this and we think of the possible needs that a GBV survivor can have, it can be anything from psychological to social consequences, shame, guilt, depression, isolation, abandonment, and abuse. So the impact of GBV can therefore be physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and economic. So when we look at supporting a GBV individual, we need to make sure that we have a systemic approach. When we look at assisting survivors with healing and recovery, we need to really support them to reclaim their voice and to reclaim their dignity. Remember that you're working with someone where they think that they've got nothing left. Nothing left. They don't have a say anymore, and they don't have value anymore. So when we talk about supporting GBV survivors, we talk about, and some of our colleagues mentioned it earlier on as well, we talk about a survivor-centered approach. And Geraldine also mentioned it earlier. When let's say someone tells you this for the first time, remember, it's about them. This situation is not about you. So you need to be with them. This was very interesting for me when I did research about all the needs of a GBV survivor. Because when we look at what we have in our country at the moment in terms of access for our individuals, if you do have a medical aid, wonderful, you're all set. If you do not have a medical aid, how do you get access to the free services that are available in our country? And this was a question that actually made me think. When a survivor needs to choose between paying her rent or paying her psychologist, which one would she choose? When we look at the next slide, let's say you are a first responder and you're seeing a survivor. First of all, most importantly, emphasize that you're believing his or her story. Build that trust with the individual. Because they've been in a space where they could not trust anyone. They've been abused, they've been harmed, so they need to have a trusting relationship with someone again. Listen without judgment. And I know this sounds easy, but don't we secretly think in our minds, did you really have to go to Small Street? Did you really have to take alcohol? Really? Couldn't you wear a longer top? And that's not what this is about. We need to engage with the person and accept what we're working with. Responding appropriately, emphasizing this is not your fault. This is not.
Once. And in that period, there had been a pattern of multiple robbery incidents in the space of a month, of which 2 of these incidents unfortunately claimed the innocent lives of 2 students. This then begs the question, why is it that it has to take something big for the law to act? What happened to prevention is better than cure? Secondly, there is an issue that has been ongoing for several occurrences. This issue then being scenario. A student is robbed off campus, either in Universitas or Brandwag. The student then goes to protection services, and then to their surprise, they are told that since the incident took place outside of university premises, they should go to SAPS. The student then goes to SAPS, and then again, they are met with an inconvenience when they are told at SAPS that since it happened in the neighborhood community of the University of the Free State, the students should then go back to protection services and let them be the ones spearheading the case. Now, mind you that the victim is in trauma while they are being made to go up and down. And after some time, the victim then realizes that they are helpless and just decide to leave the authorities as they are. Thus meaning that the perpetrator has won by default. The question here now is, who is the long arm of the law protecting? Thirdly, an incident occurred, I think 2 weeks back, if I'm not mistaken, where a student was robbed of their cellular device and laptop, and the perpetrator was said to have run and gained entrance to the campus grounds via Gate 3. This then means that the perpetrators are directly or indirectly linked to the students of the UFS, or the perpetrators are indeed the students of the UFS themselves. Furthermore, as a leader, I can infer that I shouldn't just come with problems, but also try to brainstorm innovative ideas that can try and assist in curbing the crime levels in our off-campus neighborhoods. The reason why I'm redundant and keep mentioning off-campus so much, it is because within the gates of the campus, there is each and every security measure in place that you can think of. So we should shift our priority to the outer community where all these things happen. Would it then not be a good idea that the owners, landlords, body cooperates that own this accommodation be told that it is imperative for each and every accommodation to have an armed response security? This would then ensure that these streets are patrolled regularly on a daily basis. What must be done? Because if we shy away and turn a blind eye, the students of the university will perish and return home in coffins and caskets. So what must be done at this point in time? That's my submission to the House at large. Thank you.
Thank you for an insightful suggestion and input. I think the management of the institutions that are here, specifically the question was directed to them. And from the institution, I don't know who will be answering on behalf, but I think Mr. Kobas will come at the front so that he can answer to your question. Okay.
Okay. First thing, don't distribute fake news. The incident which you talked about where you say the culprit ran into the campus, it's not the culprit that ran into the campus, it was the victim that ran into the campus. The culprit fled in a vehicle. So be sure about your facts. The details of that vehicle was distributed, it was given to the SAPS, and I think an arrest was made. I'm not sure, but I can indicate that there was an arrest made in that case. The thing I also want to say is don't be misinformed about what the responsibility of protection service. You have a security service provider that do provide a security service off campus. And currently in Brandwag, we've got Pro4 Security in cooperation with NISI Armed Response, and in Universitas, we've got NISI Armed Response providing an armed response and a patrol service. And they're effective. And we make arrest and we prevent crime. So we do what we can. Legally speaking, the university is doing more than a number of other institutions. And we've also been commended for the university responding to victims of crime of CUT. And I agree with you, landlords must be held responsible. Landlords must have an armed response service. the more armed response companies we can have working or providing a service at an off-campus residence. There's 10 armed response companies in Bloemfontein that's active. If all the landlords, all 160 premises that has been accredited to date, if all of them can have a contract with an armed response company, then we will be able to address crime. Then we will have 10 vehicles in Universitas doing patrols every day, 10 vehicles in Brandwag doing patrols every day. I understand the police is under pressure. The biggest crime hotspot in Bloemfontein is not Universitas, it's not Brandwag. It's the CBD, if I'm correct. So police resources are directed to the areas where the crime is most prevalent. But I must also say, engage with us. The off-campus vehicle was removed because we were warned. You are not registered as an off-campus security service provider. You are registered as an in-house security service provider. Stay within your lane. And as such, we did do extra work that we can do and what we can afford. But we are also expanding on that service. We are currently out on a tender to further expand the services the university provide to, and I'm going to say it, to my students. And we also need the other institutions of higher education to come to the party. It doesn't help the University of the Free State respond to an incident where a student of another institution is the victim of crime. And this is not only here. At Kwakwa, we had an incident where there was shots fired at students. The students that were killed were not University of the Free State students. It were Maluti TVET college students. The same with the incident where a student of CUT was killed in Universitas a few years back. Luckily, it wasn't the University of the Free State student that was killed, but it was a University of the Free State student that was with that victim of the crime. Legal requirements sometimes prevent us to do, but we do more than we should be doing. And I think the question is going to come for General Adams about the deployment of additional vehicles around the campuses, but that's not something that I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. As we were engaging with my co-facilitator here, for things to be presided over smoothly, to avoid follow-up questions, we need to have a respective engagement and also to accommodate diverse inputs and opinions. So we are going to take a round of 4 questions and we will note them down. If there's the people who are responsible to those questions have missed them, we'll be able to note them down for them. So we are going to take a round of 4 questions. If it's necessarily not questions also, even if there are inputs, suggestion, or anything that might be said regarding this initiative. I thank you by show of hands.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kusela Africa. I don't know how relevant this question will be to this platform, but I'm taking advantage of the program director telling us that we can ask any questions. I just want to know how accessible will the National Register for Sexual Offenders be for us as students, because it was supposed to be published on the 28th of February, but it has since been delayed. So I just want to know how accessible it will be for not only students but for the general public. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Raulan Selvo. I just want to ask regarding the deployment of police personnel, because as the previous Deputy Minister for Police, Begit Kale, stated that The new initiative that the police service have taken is to employ 10,000 recruits every year, whereas we only saw it in 2022. And then from last year, it was only 4,500 that was recruited to the training to different academies. And then only this year, that's when we saw, I think, around 5.5. And through that, that's how the South African police, that's how the South African police service is under deployment in terms of police personnel. And as a result, most of the times, most of the crimes that are reported, people can't get assistance because they will be told there are no police vans. Some police officers went to attend another case. So as it's inevitable to report these cases. Thank you.
Greetings to the House in large. My name is Kingsley Chidi Alagbaso, and I just have a few questions. Firstly, the executive mayor was here, I think, a few weeks back, and he mentioned that you guys are still busy with the process of establishing a metro, the metro under the SAPS here in the Bloemfontein. And as a metro city, it's kind of disheartening that we still don't have a metro. And I feel like that's one reason why crime is still increasing, because we don't have the metro currently. And again, are we trying to prevent crime or solve crime? Because from what I hear with the teams that are being established, it seems like the South African Police Service wants us to report crime, not basically stay in the hotspots that are here and not only in downtown, but be in hotspots where students are being marked every day so that crime can be prevented, and not only ask us to go and report crime back to you guys. And another one is back at Mr. Kwobos regarding the protection service. Is protection service entitled to protect the buildings of the institution or the students within the institution? And if it's entitled to protect the students of the University of the Free State, then why is it a law that says they should only focus on campus? Because as much as we stay off campus, it's because that we don't want to be, the residences in the institution cannot accommodate all plus or minus 35,000 students. So us being off campus means that also there should be off-campus security service providers, and which the institution should also provide. And that's one thing I want to ask was, is protection service protecting the buildings of the institution, or are they only protecting us once we're in the institution only, or are we also protected as well as off-campus? Thank you.
Dumela. Facilitators, can I speak in my home language? It's okay, ne? Yeah. It's about disability. Out of all the speakers who spoke today, there was no mention about disabled students. How are they catered for? How are they included in the safety program? And also, as Civilian Secretary mentioned, we should also include international students. Yet, what about those ones that are disabled? Be mindful of how are they accommodated when it comes to them being victims of GBV or any crime? Are they interpreters for Batobao? As we know, SAPS how fihla how na interpreter you interpreter moto ADF kapa disabled like. What about this, the university? Are they catering for those students? And again, for the team that's being established for tomorrow, how about we include team about disability? How about we include by international? I'm speaking on behalf of Youth Desk. I'm the deputy chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for comments, questions, and inputs. I believe we can take the 4 that was raised before we carry on. I think the first one was on the accessibility of the NRSO. I'm just checking who's taking that one. The National Register for Sex Offenders. Run with it. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the question. I think you are very much updated. You have been seeing that in the news and hearing it, that they are trying to make it accessible. But I can honestly and safely say it is not in the mandate of the South African Police Services. It's actually managed and led by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, which they are not, we don't have them here currently to respond to the question. It's a very good and valid question. I think it really needs the Department of Justice to respond to it. General, if I'm erring, you can assist. I really can't, we can't answer to it now here. It's a Department of Justice mandate, really. Okay. Thank you very much, General. You can come and take other police matters.
This is the part of my career that I enjoy. Being held accountable, because we are accountable to the communities that we are serving. We don't owe communities a favor, or we don't do them a favor. So it's important that if it is regarded as criticism, that we take that constructively, so that we can go back and we can go and improve where we are found wanting as the SAPS. I also need to just not come in defense of the protection service of the University of Free State, but just highlight that outside of the perimeters of this institution, law enforcement is the responsibility of official law enforcement agencies, which the South African Police Service is the most important. Well, not most important per se, everybody is important, but we are constitutionally mandated in terms of Section 205 of the South African Police Service Act. So, as indicated, if they extend, as the protection services, their patrols to Brandwag, to Universitas, to Park West, and to Universitas Ridge, they are really just doing us a favor. Because we should be the ones, in conjunction with our local municipality, which is in this case the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, we should be the ones. But it's impossible for us to be there everywhere. And that's why earlier when I reflected on the purpose, was to emphasize on collaboration. Collaborating from the lowest level to the highest. Park Road, led by the Visible Policing Commander, Colonel Andiswa Happiness Miyeki, have engaged on the issue with not land owners, but property owners that is accredited by the institution as off-campus residences. Because there was a problem that was identified, that they would make their problem ours. When the residents of these houses are becoming victims of crime, they would just, stand back. The police station, Park Road, have engaged with them, and we are actually holding them accountable because it has got an influence on them, maintaining their accreditation. And we have instructed them to harden, the security measures so that we can work collaboratively in safeguarding the students, not just of this institution, but also other institutions that are making use of such facilities. It is an ongoing process, and we can't do it without the most important ones, the occupants of those residents, that starts to understand that they are vulnerable and they get targeted. So today is not about blaming one another. It's not about the police showing or wanting to say that you are irresponsible as a student. And it's not about students wanting to blame because we are not there when they are targeted. But it's about finding solutions, long-lasting solutions, that even for generations after you, that will remain there as a foundation to take, your personal safety and security serious. Raulani Silo said, the young man reflected on the project 10,000. Yes, it's continuing. But it's also continuing in a very financially constrained environment. That yes, if we can, we will take 10,000 at a time for 2 cycles in a financial year. But we are operating in a financially constrained environment. And as those are being prepared to join the workforce in the SAPS, so are we dealing with natural attrition and members of the service leaving because of death, old age, resignation. You've heard how Mr. Kobus van Jaarsveld has been bragging about former members of the service now employed by the university. We are on constant competition with those institutions, wanting the expertise that we have created over the years, to come and add value to their institution. So yes, we are not there. We will, maybe in our lifetime, never get there. But what's important is that our ministry, our national office are mindful of the fact that policing challenges is few and, is quite challenging at times. And we need to respond there too. So it's a process that the national management is embarked upon, and at least we do get an output, across the 9 provinces. In conclusion, and we can't speak on behalf of the municipality, we would also love to see that we've got a fully functional metropolitan police service in this. We are just as excited or waiting in anticipation like many others to see them. There is, as indicated, the Honorable Mayor, the Executive Mayor, Councillor Gregory in Tatisi, they have engaged. There is talks that they are moving in the right direction to get a metropole, because then we will expand our footprint in terms of law enforcement. But importantly, for those of you that are here and those that you are busy influencing now by means of your social media platforms, they are the critical ones that we need to understand the importance of taking safety and security, serious. Because the more eyes and ears that is out there, and please do yourself a favor, go and read. I don't want to lecture you in terms of Section 205 of the South African Police Service Act. Go and read, and then you will see what is the mandate of the SAPS. We are here to prevent, investigate, crime. It's all there. And we can't do it on our own. This facility have given us the platform to forge a relationship, and it's a relationship that we are very appreciative of, and we can't regress in terms of that. So, my colleagues and my compatriots, your safety is our concern, and we are here as a service, but we can't do it on our own. Thank you very much, facilitators.
Thank you. I think we will also allow General to come at the front to answer to some of the questions that are directed strictly to South African Police Services, to supplement what the leadership have just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Directors. I think most of the questions are answered, but just to comment on a few things. I think firstly that what I want to say, especially on the question of the sex offenders register, I think it has been covered. But what I want to stress is this. I think General Adams touched on as well, that in terms of our legislations, all civil servants are obliged to account to you. And one of the things that as citizens, that the power that you haven't used is to hold people accountable. But you have that power in terms of legislation. So the point is that if you want to have more information about how you access the register, you have all the powers to call those who are responsible. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily our department. We only send people to jail and then justice put them on the register, etc. But you have the power to call them to come and account to you. Always use that power because it's there, you have it. The second thing on the issue of whether we are preventing or encouraging to report, I think it's a little bit of both. But I did stress when I was presenting that the reason why we are having this kind of engagement, because we want to focus on prevention. And that is why it's important to engage in this format, so that all the issues that you have are discussed and we find solution. So we must never stop to communicate, because as soon as we stop to do that, and then we start to have problems on that. And lastly, on the issue of, I must be careful now, like Director Dolo, Kenan Mkofi, people with disability. Firstly, I think we must firstly apologize that in a public meeting such as this, there should be somebody who is interpreting. So let us sincerely apologize on behalf of the organizing committee that there was no such person. So everyone just assumed that everyone will just understand and be able to listen and follow up. So if we can try to make sure that by tomorrow we have a sign language interpreter, it's important. But from SAPS side, especially at a station level, we have an agreement with DEFSA, Deaf South Africa, who assist us. So we do two things. Is either we get DEFSA to assist us, they assist us free of charge, or in some cases, if a person with hearing impairment, for instance, comes in, a member of the family might assist. The risk with the second part is that the member of the family might be one who is abusing the person. So currently that is where we are, but we are trying to forge more contracts in terms of getting assistance for those kind of cases. But of course, disability is not only about hearing, it's also about physical as well and other issues. As far as physical is concerned, we are accommodating those who have physical disability, especially in terms of our new police stations, as well as other old stations which we are trying to upgrade. So we are trying to accommodate all forms of disability going forward. I think that is that, Program Directors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Yeah, before we proceed, I think also Director Dolo would like to weigh in on some of the comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, facilitators. I told you we are doing oversight. All these things that were being said, I was doing oversight. The first person who asked question, he gave a scenario. I'm not sure how true is it. You go to the campus protection services on the incident that happened outside. They sent you to the police. You arrive at the police, they send you back to campus security services. Here is the issue. Should you go to the police, going to report a crime, and they send you back, take cool, don't fight. Check who is the person telling you to go back, and make sure you have got the name of that person. I've got senior members here. They are all in uniform and they've got names. If General Matonzi sent me back, now I've got the name of General Matonzi. I can take further steps to say the person who sent me back when I was reporting crime is General Matonzi. Then the SAPS will see what to do with General Matonzi when you lodge a complaint against the SAPS. I'm saying you lodge the complaint against the SAPS. You lodge it where? You lodge it at the office of the MEC for community safety. You lodge it at IPIT. And then if you did not get help, we are there at National to ensure that you are being helped. The SAPS is rendering a service and you deserve to be given a service. General Adams said they are not doing us a favor. It is their duty to serve us. So no policeman will have to send you back to say, don't open up a case, go back and report it back. No, that we discouraged in all terms. And if you know the person who did that, please see us and see the general. We will attend to it before we leave today. And then the other thing, General Matonzi spoke to the issue of disability. It's like they were appealing, General, in that question of disability to say, in the structure that will be announced tomorrow, can the disabled people find a space of participating? I would say to you, 100%. During the presentation, I indicated on slide number 8 that any other interested parties who are interested in the safety of our students should form part of that structure. If we have got those people who voluntarily wants to be part, we welcome them. We cannot segregate them, especially that they are South Africans and they have got all the rights to participate and to be protected. Thank you, facilitators.
Thank you very much, Director. I know you won't take offense, but like even General was also being careful about, we need to correct terminologies. They are not disabled people. They are persons with disabilities, or a person with disability.
I apologize.
You also know the departments of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Thank you very much. I just want everyone to get it right. Thank you very much. We're now going to move to the left. We've been too much on the right, and thank you very much for participating. I haven't heard much from the left. Please, you're going to take another 4 rounds of questions, but this time, please, from the left. Let me get it. Let me get from the left. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Program Director, my name is Mahaun Shapo. I'm the Back Road CPF chairperson. And I'm proud to say, when they talk about transformation in terms of disability, I'm the first chairperson, or the one and only in the district living with disability. So Back Road, in terms of transformation, we are getting there. But what I wanted to raise particularly is not a question, but it's based on what we know as student council, our SRCs. As the Back Road CPF, I think we must be fair to say, students should not only see members of the SAPS as law enforcers only, or when they need to open cases. Colleagues, we need to come to the point that even students themselves should at least meet us halfway. Why I'm saying this? When they have issues with the institution, they will decide to go to protest without even engaging other broader stakeholders, which affect us. Because of, by me as the chairperson, as the young man, seeing other young people tomorrow being arrested in my station, it doesn't serve me well. And it won't serve me well. But we need to use what we ought to see as stakeholders approach. We need to approach things as a unit, not as individual. Secondly, the students that are residing off campus, I will want to encourage that as young people, let us not rely on saying government should serve us. But as we know, this government by the people, for the people, let us ensure that we support it with relevant programs. For example, I'm staying in Brandwag here. We have streets that are problematic, but I will tell you, the same street that are problematic, during the weekend you will find those student accommodations that are on those streets play music up until 3 o'clock in the morning. And who are residing there? Majority are students. So I believe that we need to even instill discipline amongst ourselves. Let us not look into issue of policies or enforcement, but let us talk about again how ourselves we conduct ourselves around. Lastly is the issue of that we talked about, issue of age. Colleagues, you cannot be a young person, 18, and you are a lady, you go around the vicinity 3 o'clock in the morning. You are from small street, you are walking alone. Immediately by you doing that, you are calling, or you are already subjecting yourself to be vulnerable. And you are alone. These are the situations that we meet. Last part is the issue of students going to the liquor outlets, drinking, and even finding themselves outside, holding their own savannas, holding their own habli. When you reprimand them, they are the first to tell you about their rights, forgetting that the same rights must be protected by us. We must ensure that they are responsible for their own rights. So with that said, program director, we need to have this engagement where we sit down with our students. They are our brothers and sisters. And I must ensure that I meet with the station and resolve their matters. Fortunately enough, Mr. Kuobas and his team, we forever sit together, we forever ensure that we resolve some of these matters. But issue of sitting down, engaging as the society, it's eminent and it's imperative. Thank you very much.
I see the second hand.
Okay, greetings to everyone. I have a question, but my question it's regarding the criminal record. Let's say, for instance, like, throughout your childhood, there are some certain activities that you used to do and you consequently ended up having criminal record, or you are still in this environment, there are some certain things that happen and you have the criminal record. And we know some careers, like for instance, you can't be a lawyer while you have a criminal record. So I wanted to know if there are measures that you can do to erase or eliminate that record from your status. That's all.
By show of hands, suggestion, inputs, questions on the left-hand side.
Ach, it's right, thanks.
Dumelang. Na gutle ho botswa ka ho bua ka di panic attack ntho panic button ka mo ka di accommodations tsa rona mo re dulang teng ko off campus. So ke batla ho botsa hore di tlo kenywa to every accredited accommodation na, or it will depend hore landlord yena how much or maybe budget ana leona for all those things hore di implement we go mo yena a ownante.
Before you take the mic away from him, can he please rephrase or repeat his question so that we can take it properly?
Yeah, like so the panic button so the panic button di tlo kenywa jwang, like each and every house it tlo dula ena le panic button now, cause obviously hona le batho ba re kenelang, and then each and every house it will in a lona na.
No, okay. Very clear. The program director has warned me with time. We'll have loved to be here the whole day, exchange ideas, engage, debate in various levels. So, as the secretary of the Free State Youth Crime Prevention Desk and Committee, I would like to assure you that together with the collective, that we are going to support all these institutions, all these structures that are going to be formed and implemented in various levels. So as we are moving towards our conclusion, I would like to call forward Director Dolo. But before we call him, can we please have Brigadier Shanek to answer the question that was asked by a very young man there, that which is very valid to be answered to.
And as she come here, General Adams, I think the small street is big. I don't know it, but really it needs a lot of attention, really.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody in the House. Yes, indeed, it's possible to expunge the criminal record, but you have to apply to the Ministry of Justice for that records to be expunged. But remember, it also depends on what kind of criminal offense you have committed. If it was rape, you'll go to that thing that they are waiting for, the records or the register. So in a nutshell, you will apply, you will submit an application form where you then apply for the expunsion of your criminal record. As simple as that. You can go to your nearest police station, get the forms, they will provide you with the forms. We'll go with another set of fingerprints to the Criminal Record Center. We will apply then from Justice for the expunsion of your criminal record. I think that is what I wanted to indicate to you. Thank you very much.
All right. I think the one of the CPF chair was a very good constructive comment. We thank you very much, CPF Park Road. Now we will ask you, Director Dolo, as he's coming, to also respond to the question of the panic button. And he has been sitting down, noting down every comment. We will request him to also wrap up the facilitation session for us as we bow down. Thank you very much. You've been such a good audience.
Oh, let's start with them. Let us give them a round of applause, definitely. They are good facilitators. During my presentation, I indicated that we will come back through the protection services. We will engage with them and we will bring along some panic buttons precisely for the students who are residing outside. It might not be enough to cover all the students, but when we engage with the protection service, we will identify the houses, or rather the residential places, where we know that we can leave them, and then where possible, there will be the ones that will be personal, that the students will have as they walk from the campus to the place. The one which will be planted at the residential place, it will be linked to the police station. So it's a process that we are going to engage on, and then that sponsor that we are going to engage with, we are going to tell the sponsor that we were with the University of Free State, there is this problem. How can you intervene? The sponsor will have to assist, because we saw the sponsor assisting in other institutions. And then also, that is the partnership that we are having with that sponsor. That panic button, we will demonstrate it. It makes a hell of a noise. If you press it as a person on the street, it will bring the attention of the people around, and the person who wants to attack you might be deterred if he is not under the influence of something that will tell him to write on, brother. So that is that. I think we answered that question on panic buttons. Allow us to engage with the university. They will assist us in identifying. They said it's 160 private landlords that are hosting the students. We will engage with the sponsor to say there are 160 private landlords where we wish to have the panic buttons installed. Then we will come back and give a definite answer on that one. At the end, we want to appreciate the response from SAPS. General Adams, General Matonzi, Brigadier Charnek, and other SAPS members who were answering people who are at their close proximity seated there. We appreciate the open service that you are rendering. Definitely, I want to say, now I understand your salute. No, when you salute your seniors, I understand it. Because it is done with an open hand. And the hand is facing the people. And it means they are rendering an open and transparent service. It is not done. Once it is done, you must know, you will go to any other nearest court, you will never get answers. Then the other thing, I'll make sure we don't exceed that. The other thing, we want to appreciate the participation that the students who are here showed, and the interest they showed in taking part in this activity. We're coming here precisely for you. And when you participate, we are getting more information. Like we were taking notes as you were speaking out. There are things that we are going to rectify. There are things that we are going to make sure that they are done the better way. So you have been one good audience and good participants. And I was only coming to thank on behalf of the facilitators. Over to you, Program Director.
Colleagues, thank you very much for a very lively engagement. Thank you also for your contributions throughout the day. It is my lovely pleasure to tell you now that lunch is going to be served. Yes. So from my side, I would like to ask that please we let the VIPs go first, that they can just get served, and then the rest of us can go. So please, the rest of us can remain seated, and our VIP colleagues can please get their lunch. Thank you very much, colleagues. I hope you've got a blessed day. We see you tomorrow.